Hey, listen, I want everybody to know this is Friday night. So you are here live and direct after a 1-week absence with me and my co-host. That would be the full tag team champions. Not just of the world, not just of the universe, not just of the galaxy, but also of interactive sports talk.
Undisputed.
Undisputed. And that would be your boy, McCain. And above me, we're joined, as we are most weeks, by...
Yes, sir. Y'all know me, man. Stephen Box. Good to be back, man. Good to be back.
And guess what? This means it's Friday night. This means it's the play callers. And if it's your first time tuning in, if you haven't been here in a while, we're just going to quickly let you know who we are.
The play callers.
With that, you back with the tag team champs. And that's hashtag tag team champions. Just so you remember, it has been a crazy, and I mean crazy, week in sports. So many things have happened since my co-host was last here. We've had another week of games played in the NFL. We've had more college games played. We've had a governor take an owner mentality with his teams. Get a little bit of retribution and all that good stuff. But guess what? We have had as well. We've had more for us to talk about. And that's never a bad thing.
Never, ever.
But this week, we're going to be joined by another individual. He's been on before. We're going to let him back on, I guess.
You want to go and let him on now?
Once he gets that camera fixed, we'll let him on.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we can only see that bottom half of his face, so everybody might want to see the top part as well. There we go, a little bit better. Can we get that up just a little bit more? Yeah, I guess we can go ahead and we just got about 2/3 of his face. If we can get him to lift his camera a slightly more so that his whole face will be in there. There we go. We are ready now, sir. We are ready.
All right, one sec. I just gotta fix. There it is. All right, we good to go.
All right.
Well,
is he there?
It looks like he froze.
It looks like he froze, so he'll be back in a minute. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and dig into the salacious sports topics that we're going to have available this week. So we're going to be starting off with this whole situation in Phoenix. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Mr. Box, if you'd like to, you can. There he is. Y'all see what I'm talking about? We see like 2/3 of his face. We need him to like step 2 steps back for the camera, maybe. You got to do something for us because it's like...
2.
I see myself perfectly, though. That's the thing.
Bro, take the zoom off. That's what I'm saying. Like,
something, because like we see like your glass, the bottom of your glasses and down.
But it's crazy. Hold on. Let me see if I can switch it to. Is there a way I can switch it to? Does that better?
Well, I mean, we see your face.
Yeah, that's good. Man. We can at least see your eyes now.
Yeah.
I don't get it because like I can see both of you guys perfectly, and I can see myself perfectly, but you guys can't see me.
You're definitely
perfectly.
You're perfect. It's like you got your zoom on like 200%.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like.
Well, let me.
Yeah, but while you work
play,
on that,
you play with that, man. We go talk some sports while you do that.
Yeah, we'll talk a little sports while you play with that. So,
perfect.
We got the Phoenix Suns governor, as they're called now. Doesn't really make a difference, but apparently the wording makes some people feel better. But he's had a lot of things that he said and done that have been racist between the Mercury and the Suns. and as sexist as well. Very misogynistic comments, racist comments, all these things. An investigation was done.
Right.
So the completion of the investigation was simply, oh, shame on you. You're out for a year, and we're going to fine you $10 million. Bad boy. And then we're not going to talk about it anymore. But no.
Yeah.
That's not going to fly.
That was kind of crazy.
The players have a problem with it. I, as a fan of NBA, have a problem with it. As a person of color, I have a problem with it. As someone who fashions himself or likens himself to someone that fights for equality for females within sports, I have a problem with that as well. So simply put, long story short, this was garbage. This was trash. This was asinine. This was not a proper way to handle this. So I want to talk about it from a perspective that a lot of people probably tired of hearing about, but I don't care. Deshaun Watson was fined 11 games for allegations not being proved. You can feel how you want, nothing was proved. And given a $5 million fine. So an owner that has a habitual nature of being disrespectful to women and people of color, and probably heck about everybody else, gets 1 year, so 1 season, and a $10 million fine. So NBA, there's a players association. You didn't do much to help in certain things. You do a lot more in certain things. This is unacceptable. NBA, you need to get this right. This man, this is the same type of level of stuff that happened to the dude in the Clippers that had to sell the whole organization. So my question is, why is it different now? Haven't we already set a precedent that when this type of thing happens, cash is out the door, team is sold? Well, why isn't it sold? Oh, because this is a guy that might have some dirt on some other people, and they're trying to make sure that they straight by trying to sweep this under the rug. So all you fans that was out here trolling and begging and complaining about Deshaun Watson, this was worse. Where are you at now? I want to see the same people on my Facebook, on my Instagram, on my Twitter, running around on talk shows and all that. I want to see the same thing now. And if I don't, you're hypocritical pieces of trash, and I don't respect your opinions on anything anymore. I'm sick of this crap. These owners do whatever they want and nothing happens. Where's the outrage? Deshaun Watson getting booed at home, called a rapist and all this with nothing proven. This dude has everything proven. Where is the outrage? I want to see it. But it ain't going to come.
I think it's interesting you said that, given the fact that Silver came in this Sterling situation. So that was like his first great hurrah to then come to this point and then just kind of drop the ball. Like 10 million doesn't even, it's like a 1 cent to an owner that brings in $1 billion as a team itself.
This is garbage. And this is what I say when I talk double standards. So, some people had a problem with my takes on Deshaun Watson. Well, guess what? I have a problem with your lack of saying anything for this guy. Then we got an owner in the NFL, and Daniel Snyder. Why does he still have a team? Yep. We got an owner in Robert Kraft that didn't even get in trouble for getting happy endings, plus from sex trafficked women. Why nothing happens to him? Why is it only the player? Why don't the other people who are supposed to be an example for the players, who are supposed to be an example for these organizations at a higher standard, at a higher level, nothing happens? But if it's a player, we all on it. We all on it. We all in. We causing public outrage. We signing different things. We're on every platform we can get on, complaining, saying he needs to be treated worse. None of that's happening here.
And it's also interesting that everything between the two is nobody actually knows what's actually happened because they weren't in the situations. Well, they're only hearing from what they hear from the affidavits and the accounts, and yet Deshaun gets one thing and then the other guy gets nothing.
Well, he had a punishment, but the NFL and their guy decided we were going to make this where he's going to have to take what we wanted to take. We wanted him to have a whole season. but at minimum, he's going to have to take these 11 games, and they made sure that that's what he got.
They were mad.
I would say, you set a precedent. So when it happens to someone that does not look like Deshaun Watson, he better get the same thing. And all of you people that were so outraged now, when it happens again, you better be outraged again. But you won't. Because if the person doesn't look like Deshaun Watson, you don't care.
The NFL's kind of already showed you how they feel in terms about anything that becomes towards women, because they were quick to go on Ezekiel Elliott and Ray Rice and all of them. But you had a kicker in the Giants and Josh Brown who they knew had been physically abusing his wife and did not have them in the same hotel because of it. And he got last up until the whole outrage came, where they then forced him off the team. But they knew about his documented domestic abuse against women and his wife, so much to a point that it was actually a very potential life-threatening situation. And they still had no problem saying anything, no problem not doing anything. And then here you are trying to be different. And in terms of the NBA dude, this just shows me the difference between having video evidence or physical audio like they had with Donald Sterling when he actually is on record by saying it out loud, as opposed to accounts. They don't want to make that call, but it should be easy for a progressive league like the NBA to like that. You can't have these players like Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Carmelo, Chris Paul, all these different mantras all year long talking about equality and ending racism, and then literally come up with this suspension and $10 million for something that's exactly what you were just sitting there having these players advocate for.
So one thing you guys have already covered a lot of this, and I agree with a lot of the points that y'all already made, but I want to kind of just add this little piece to it. What does suspending an owner really do?
Nothing.
Like how is that really even a punishment?
It's not. He still makes his money. You basically gave him a $10 million fine and said you can't show up where anybody can see you. That's all you've done.
Yeah. So, basically you're going to still get your money. You're just not allowed to show up to work for a year.
Or not allowed to be seen at work for a year.
Yeah. Another thing, I can't remember the other guy's name right now, but I think it was like the president or vice president of the organization. ESPN, when they first leaked this story, put a big story out about it. And, he came out and was like, this story is like completely bogus and it's nonsense and all this other stuff. Well, turns out it was not bogus and it was not nonsense. So, I would like to see the league also go back and have some conversations with him, because, for him to come out that strong against it when apparently those allegations were true, makes you wonder what he had to hide.
So many layers to this, man. But I can simply say we can spend the whole hour on this, as I can with most of the topics. But we have some other stuff to get to. But I will say this. There's a lot of hypocritical people in this world. And if any of you see this, piss on you.
That's real fan. Critical. Average fan is hypocritical.
Well, piss on them. Because you get outraged for one person, but then you allow other people to do worse, and you have nothing to say. You cowards.
People only outrage people they want to see fail. They're not outraged against anybody that they don't quote unquote care for or don't want to see fail.
I agree, but that's hypocritical. It should be the same across the board. That's why punishments are supposed to be equal. That's why there's written into laws. That's why precedents are set. But we're not going to follow those unless we want to. So again, it's on you.
Yep.
Now, to move on to our next topic, we had a game that was played yesterday. A little football. And I'll say for most of the game, we saw what we've been seeing from one of those teams, and that's Kansas City. Trash juice for 3 quarters. You get to the end of the game, they find a way to beat teams. My question actually for both of you is going to be, how long can they be trash juice for most of the game and still come back and beat teams?
Unfortunately, man, I think pretty often, because the reality is the league has gone so far in the direction of protecting offenses and making life difficult for defenses that as long as they can manage to stay in a game, keep it somewhat close, they have the opportunity in the fourth quarter to basically just have an offensive explosion. Because especially in the fourth quarter, the referees are going to start throwing more flags on the defense. They're going to start giving you, especially some of those bogus PI calls down the field. They start calling it a little tighter for some reason in the fourth quarter of games. All that kind of stuff is what helps Kansas City out. So as long as the rules continue to, work in their favor, I think they can get away with this.
I think it's less about them and more about where the Chargers are not and where they want to be. Because for the sake of the matter, the turning point was that pick six. Ever since that pick six, the Chargers became lifeless. And at the end of the day, that gave the boost for Kansas City. And I don't think that's anything to do with Kansas City's play at that point. It's just Justin Herbert rushed that throw. 100%. He didn't need to move that ball that fast. He could have took some time, let everybody really get set. He was getting antsy. He wanted to get up because he had a chance to kind of go for the kill shot. He'll learn from that. But as far as the Chiefs, I don't think it's anything. I think as long as the team believes that they can beat them, no matter how much that 3 quarters of playing bad is going to bite them in the butt more times than not. The only reason why they didn't lose to Buffalo last year is because of the overtime, and they couldn't stop them Buffalo couldn't stop them on defense in the overtime. But Buffalo was not afraid to go into Kansas City right now and try to get a victory. Cincinnati came into Cincinnati right now and got a victory. I think if you become that team, they can't afford to play that way forever if teams start realizing that they just got to play their game in order to beat them. But I do understand where Steven's coming from, where it's so catered to the offense that it does make it so much easier for them to come back because you can throw 55 yards down the field and get down there off a penalty, straight up.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing you got to too. So the second question, which actually you've already answered, was going to be, so from the Charger side, you said what I actually disagree with what you said as far as the turning point of the game. But my question is, did you feel like the Chargers lost the game or that the Chiefs won the game?
I feel like that was more indicative of the Chargers losing the game because I think there were a couple of situations that happened that not only did they turn the tide of the game in the scorecard, it turned the momentum and how they feel as a team a little bit because it just looked a lot different. And give big credit to Kansas City. They keyed in on Mike Williams. Once they keyed in on Mike Williams, they didn't really have an answer. So I think if LA has all this talent around them, they looked like the better team for majority of the game. And I feel like if you look like the better team for the majority of the game, you didn't win. They didn't beat you. You lost the game.
Well, that's fair. What do you think, Bucks?
I mean, I look at it from the standpoint that I feel like the Chargers have a bit of a history of losing games. We talked about it during the AFC West preview on here. My co-host and I both said that we weren't as high on Herbert as everybody else seems to be. That we thought he still had a lot to prove. And, he did play pretty well. Like you said, obviously the interception really hurt. But I think you have to kind of look at the other side of this also, right? Which is several times, at least 2, maybe 3 times, you could honestly say that Mahomes should have thrown an interception in that game. And the Chargers did not capitalize. So it's not just the problem with them is it's not always just one thing. They are the best team in the league at finding different ways to blow games.
That's very true. I'll say this. So for me, Chargers definitely lost the game. I'm not surprised that they lost the game, but here's the thing as well. There was some overturned calls. There was a big pick that Mahomes had that was overturned. So that's the thing, too. The refs were working with him, in my opinion. People could feel like they wanted to feel. I picked the Chiefs to win the game because I knew this type of thing would happen. But the refs were helping them. So for me, I don't think the interception was the point where they lost the game. I think the point where they lost the game was when they did not put them away in the first half. They should have been up by 14 to 21 points at halftime. They did not put them away when they were not playing well. We all understand as fans of any sport, whether it's football, whether it's baseball, soccer, basketball, hockey, golf, tennis, whatever. If you have an opportunity to put your opponent away early, you do not. 9.5 times out of 10, it comes back to shoot you in the foot.
Yeah.
They did not establish the fact that they have other weapons on that team. They did not properly use Austin Eckler in the run game. When they did give him the ball in the pass game, they do this stupid rotation where, let's be honest, the back in that backfield that makes the most is Austin Eckler. If you're not going to feature him and you don't have Keenan Allen and you won't have sense enough to move Mike Williams around so that he can be in different coverage situations, this is the outcome that you were going to get. You had a tight end who was tired, who was trying to come off the field in Everett. They would not let him come off because they wanted to try to run a play real fast before they could get their goal line defense in. And then what did you do? You threw the ball to the guy that didn't even want to be on the field because he's out of shape. He's not in football shape yet. But you knew that going into the play. If you're a quarterback that's supposed to be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league and you can't figure that out and decide not to throw the ball there but throw it somewhere else, like, hey, crazy thought. I don't know if you saw the play or not. Austin Eckler's creeping right up the middle with nobody on him. You dump a real zip ball to him. He maybe doesn't score, but he gets you to the 1 or 2 yard line. Worst case scenario, maybe he fights in the end zone. Maybe you got another down close to the goal line, and then they have to bring in their goal line team. But what do you do instead? You throw the ball to the guy who's mentally not in the game because he's tired. When we get tired, the first thing that goes is your break. So he's over here. The ball comes here. Somebody misread, but you don't make that read to that guy when you know his situation. That's an opportunity where you try to maybe fit the ball to Mike Williams, a running back, another wide receiver, like he did on the last drive. So for me, that was a bonehead play, but not having a bigger lead going into the fourth quarter, going into the third quarter against them after halftime, that's what really lost in the game.
But you speak to the point where, as I referenced earlier, the Chargers are not where they think they should be. They're not where everybody thinks they should be, because a team that is where people think they should be, which is a Super Bowl favorite or a possible AFC Championship game rep outside of them, other teams, you would put that team away. But historically, I think there is a mantra with this team that you've seen them down 28 points in a playoff game and come back and win, or 24 points against Houston and come back and win. So while they could have put them away right there, they didn't make the adjustment when Kansas City made the adjustment and basically said, and you referenced it, we're going to stop Mike Williams. You're going to have to get everybody else involved. And that's exactly what they did in that second half. Mike Williams had 8 catches and 6 of them was in the first half. So that right there kind of shows what was working for them in the beginning as opposed to what did not work in the second half.
But did you think that was going to work the whole game? If you did, you're an idiot.
I agree.
So you should have been prepared. Again,
adjustment.
You have to move your best receiver around when they're starting to do that. You cannot, and I don't believe they would have done it either. You cannot afford to say, if they put Mike Williams in a slot, for instance, or they put Mike Williams in 5 wide, and you run him across the middle. You can't afford to dedicate 2 people to him, because if you do that, you're going to leave somebody with deep one-on-one coverage. They're going to beat their guy, and you're going to get a opportunity for a big sprite. You should have changed once you realized what was happening with Mike Williams when you did not have the other dynamic receiver in Keenan Allen. You should have used Eckler more before the last 2 drives. Again, that rotation of bring Eckler in for a few plays, bring Jackson in for a few plays, bring Michelle in for a few plays. It does not work. It does not work because Jackson can't catch and Michelle can't catch. And I'm not saying they can't catch in the sense that they can never catch a ball, but I'm saying they're not a guy that you can put out there from the backfield, swing him out to wide receiver, or give him a little wheel route and let him go. They're not the type of player Eckler is. So you have to use the proper weapons. You have to make adjustments. That's on the offensive coordinator and the head coach. You didn't make adjustments. You did not adjust to another team that you should have already been up more on when you had the opportunity in the first half. Again, you let people stick around, they're going to burn you. Boss, hop in here. My bad.
You good, man. I mean, at the end of the day, man, it's really just, this is what the Chargers do, man. I mean, and it's been this case through multiple head coaches, different players, different people in leadership positions. There is just something about this organization where they find ways to be just good enough to stay in the middle of the pack or a little bit above, but they can never get over the hump because they keep making mistakes like this.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue with a logical statement. My other thing too, man, for me, I get a little upset when I see teams that. So let me back up. The Rams, the Raiders. I mean, all off season, we talked about how the Raiders were probably the worst team in the division, right? Then we talked about how, we don't know what's going to happen with the Broncos, whatever. Everybody says it's going to be Kansas City and the Chargers. Riddle me this. When has Justin Herbert led a team to the playoffs? Not a championship, not the second round, just the first round of the playoffs. If you have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and a run game and a solid defense, not a great one, but at least a solid defense, at least a top 15 defense last year, and you can't take that team to the playoffs, how do you become a top 10 quarterback?
That's based off of how they felt about him coming in. People are quick to point people into the top 10 or top 5 if it's a quarterback that they believe in. And he came in as projected a person that everybody thought was going to get to this top 5, top 10 level. So as soon as he shows some bit of success, they're quick to put him up there, even if he hasn't done anything.
But that's the definition of asininity, sir. That is the definition of asininity.
And it's interesting about the Kansas City game because Justin Herbert is it's not like he hasn't won there. He's won 3 straight times. This is his first loss last night.
But he hasn't made playoffs. That's the thing. He does not belong high up, getting all this praise until he can get to the playoffs. I'm not saying win the Super Bowl. Get to the playoffs. As you go along this season, we will see. These guys that you want to crown before they do anything, you got to be wrong.
So I feel like this is a good time to just kind of break in real quick, man, and want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Fanatics.com. Which, of course, if you're a Justin Herbert fan, go by all means buy you a Justin Herbert jersey from Fanatics.com. You can see the link right down the screen. PlayCollegeSportsTalk.com/fanatics.
But definitely make sure you use that link when you buy it.
Definitely use the link.
That's a nice segue. I like that.
But yeah, there's a lot that you could talk about the game last night. But why? It was hot garbage. At the end of the game, just because one team decided not to take advantage of opportunities, and when you don't, again, you always end up in a certain position. Now, on top of that, when we look at the schedule coming up this week, we will go over all the games. But before we get to that, just want to ask you guys, is there any one game, and we need to all disqualify our own teams. Okay? So if you're Mr. Jenkins, don't come up here talking about no Ravens. If you don't come up here talking about no Vikings and Eagles. And if you boss, don't come up here talking about the 49ers game. But as fans of the game of football, is there any game this weekend that you're looking forward to seeing besides your own team play?
I'll let you take it away, Mr. Box.
I'm really trying to think if there's like who I really want to see, like, right? When I think about the interesting games, I'm actually going to do what Cool's not allowed to do. Because when I look at the matchups, the one that I really say like it could be really interesting to see is the Vikings and the Eagles. The Eagles offensively looked pretty good last week, but their defense looked a little suspect. Minnesota, offense actually looked pretty decent, which we heard a lot in the offseason that it might. So, definitely going to be an interesting matchup. I will just say that, hey, we could talk a little bit about college football last week as well. That was a week where you looked at it and you said, oh, man, there's not really a whole lot of interest in matchups this week. Ended up being a pretty great week of football. So just because it doesn't look like any good matchups on paper doesn't mean we're not in for a great week.
Mm-hmm. You stole. I was going to say that same team, same game as well. But another one I'm looking forward to is Buffalo and Tennessee. I'm looking forward to seeing what, Tennessee suffered a really crushing defeat from the former offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills that gets in his new team with the football Giants, because I still think Tennessee is still a good team, but I'm curious to see if the big hype from a convincing opening day victory against the Rams is going to transcend them to be kicking off, or they're going to have a little bit of a I'm too drinking my own Kool-Aid. And then here comes a team where you've seen just lost to the Giants. All right, let me kind of play around with them. And the next thing you know, one team that when you have a team that has a player coach like Mike Vrabel, they're gritty, they're gutty, and they're not going to give up. And at the end of the day, when you think you're about to roll over for them, that's when they pounce. And the only reason why I know that is I know from personal experience in 2019, 14-2, coming into a home playoff game, coming across a team that just made the playoffs. We thought we could did it. Boom, squeak. They just destroyed us. And I could see that happening, but I'm going to see where Buffalo is in terms of, are they really the Super Bowl contending team? Are they the team that feel like they left it on the field last year? Because if that's the case, there shouldn't be no letdown against a team that you honestly are better than. But at the same time, is your heart better than their heart? Because Tennessee has heart.
Well, I'm gonna go with the Commanders and the Lions. So the Commanders had a pretty solid victory opening week, right? Carson, the commie commander, had a decent game. He threw the ball to a lot of different guys. He was able to expose the team he played and show that at least for 1 week he could be who people thought he would be years ago. But the thing is, what intrigues me about this game is that they're playing the Lions, right? And I think that, and me and my co-host said this as well when we were doing our previews, I think that the Lions are a much better team than people gave them credit for in the offseason. I was one of the few Eagles fans, and there weren't a lot, that were saying, I think this is going to be a close game. They got DJ Chark, they got different weapons. Their running game seems pretty solid. They got a heck of a running back coach that Eagles fans know very well, churns out quality running backs. So my thing was, because of those things, this should be a good matchup early in the season to test if the Lions are better than a lot of people thought they were, or if it was just the flukiness of our defense playing so bad that allowed them to get back into the game. And if the Commanders are really solid, can they go in and do what we did and beat the Lions in Detroit? So that, to me, is an interesting game because of a lot of dynamics, and we're seeing two teams that might be better than people thought, or one of them, at least, after this game, people will be like, they are who we thought they were.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big thing, man, is, I'm really kind of looking forward to any of the games and just kind of seeing how things play out, because I'm a big believer that week one doesn't tell you a whole lot. And especially it's now more true than it used to be, because guys don't play in the preseason at all. There's reduced practices. Nobody hits in practice anymore. So you have all those factors that make basically week one in the NFL is what college football has always been week one. Where people go out there and it's sloppy and it's messy and people make mistakes. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into anything I saw in week one. I want to see this week, now that we've gotten those first game jitters out of the way, let's start to find out who teams really are.
I 100% agree with that. I do think I do want to talk to reference Cool's point about the Lions. I still don't think that they're as good or better than people think that people has been speaking on them. I think they're on a team that is steadily getting better. They won't go 4-13 or so, but I can see them going 7-10, or 6-11, or maybe even 8-9. They look like a team. I referenced what Derek Carr said about his Raiders when they were at the beginning, their first time when they came up. the first year they started kind of being in games where they went like 8-8 or something like that. He said, we just learned how to compete in games. And I think that's where Detroit is right now. I think they're going to be competitive in all these games, but I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to be possibly contending for a wild card spot, which is what I've seen people have done for them. I still finished them seven. I still have them finishing second in their division because I don't think the other teams are that good. But I do see them still being a sub 500 team. But to Steven's point, nobody has an identity right now. Everybody's trying different things. Like, for example, Kansas City, we don't know who's going to be the pick up the slack for Travis Kelce with Tyreek gone. You know, players haven't played yet. So people haven't got a chance to form identities.
So let me ask both of y'all a question. So we talk about how teams don't play in the preseason. So doesn't that level the playing field? And maybe maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. But what I'm saying is we're saying like, oh, we don't know who teams are because they didn't play in the preseason. Most teams didn't play much in the preseason. So doesn't that not allow a competitive advantage for anybody, meaning that everybody's on the same level or a similar level? Because if we're talking 5 teams doesn't play and everybody else plays a lot of the preseason, then I feel what you're saying is more valid. But that didn't happen. Most teams played few, if any, snaps in the preseason. There are people that lament that, and I think that that's a bad decision, but that's the way everyone is going. So if that's the way that everyone is going, then everyone is on the same level. So if everyone is on the same level, how can we not look and say, okay, everybody we expect to improve. So if everybody's going to improve, we're still going to get similar results.
I think that kind of leads. I'm sorry, Steven. I'm sorry too. But I think that leads to Steven's points where he said we just don't know what it is yet because we don't know the development of those players that are on that team that may look like an even playing field, whereas to the ones that we know coming in, like Detroit. If you're saying like somebody like Detroit or any of the 0-1 teams on the same level as the 1-0 teams like Buffalo or Baltimore or Philly or like I can't say that because I think overall until I've seen it from those teams that have people are supposed to improve, I think these other people are better. And the reason why I say I think we don't know is because I expect all 3 of our teams to be relevant and good. I don't expect, even though I've heard, I think that they've vastly improved like a Lions or the Jets or something. I don't expect them to be on the same playing field as our 3 teams.
Well, I mean, that's true, but at the same time, that's why the games are played on the field. I mean, as a fan, most of the teams lose at least 1 to 2 games that you shouldn't lose. I think it's early in the season for sure, but I think at the same time, you're seeing what you're going to see. You're seeing the better teams, even if you feel like a team's really good that lost, maybe they played another real good team, like the Rams, for instance. Do we think the Rams are as bad as they looked opening night? No, we don't. We know that they're a better team than that. Are they going to look better next week? Probably so. But also, Buffalo didn't do everything that they could week 1 because they didn't play in the preseason either. So they're going to be better. Now, that better against a different opponent could produce a different outcome, right? Because let's be real. We've said it for years, me and my co-host, Stafford is not all that. Stafford is not trash, but Stafford is not good. Stafford is mediocre. You put a mediocre team with really good weapons, correct coaching, they're going to be able to do things. That's what's happened for Matthew Stafford. And that's not a knock on him, but we're trying to make him a great quarterback now because he finally won a Super Bowl after being on a garbage team where he ranked up all these stats that everybody loves to slob him for. So my point.
Just want to throw out real quick. Because I just want to answer your question before we get too far down the road here. So
yes, sir.
Allow me to rephrase what I was saying a little bit to make it a little bit more clear. I wasn't saying that the lack of playing in preseason provided or did not provide a competitive advantage to anyone. I was just simply saying that you got a lot of guys out there who are not working as a cohesive unit on the field right now. So it wasn't really so much about who won or lost as much as it was, I think that by week 3 or 4, we'll start to have a much better idea of who teams are as they start to get into more of a rhythm. That was more my point, because you can't only simulate so much stuff in practice. Let's be real.
Agreed. But at the same time, for teams like, for instance, teams who I won't say a specific team, but teams who lost important pieces this week, because there were teams who had injuries. to key pieces to the team. You're never going to see what they would be because of those injuries. We're going to have more injuries throughout the year. So that's going to always change the dynamic of who's this, who's that. And there's always going to be development. There's going to be guys who come out, no matter how much they play week one, that first 1 or 2 games, in a different role, in a starting role, in a more featured role, asking to do different things than they did the year before, who aren't going to look as good as they are in games 5, 6, 7, 8. But are we really going to wait 3, 4, 5 games before we start saying, okay, this team looks like that, this team looks like that? I'm not. If you guys choose to do so, that's cool. But I'm not, because, again, I think everybody had the same prep time. You're going to all develop. There are teams that we know have the potential to be better than other teams. To the Lions' point real quick, and I'll just make this real quick, and I'll say them and other teams like them. If you won 4 games last year and you win 8 games this year, you've improved.
Yeah.
If you won 2 games last year and you win 5 games this year, you've improved. So a lot of people that I've talked to, that I've heard talk about the Lions, expected them to win about 5 or 6 games this year. I expect them to win 7 or 8 games this year. Their fans expect them to win 9 or more games, but they're fans, so that is what that is. But I think that you're going to see improvement from the Lions from last year. As you said, they may be the second best team in the division now. I don't trust Kirk Cousins on a long-term basis. I don't know when the collapse happens. I don't know what games it'll be, but we know who Kirk Cousins is. And in the words of Denny Green, he is who we think he is. And he will show us that during this season.
Yeah, I will also add that right now, speaking of, we don't know who people are. I mean, what's Green Bay's receiving core going to look like this season? Are they going to get it together? Or is what we saw week one? Yeah, is week one what we're going to get out of Green Bay's receivers this year? You know what I'm saying?
They don't get better. If they don't get better, boy, Aaron Rodgers is going to quit in the middle of the season.
But I think
Aaron Rodgers going to need some of that herb.
I think at the end of the day, they were to struggle. They were to fail. I think you do have to kind of put an onus on Aaron Rodgers, because I don't think that comment coming out, that whether it was true or not, but the whole idea was it came out about your receivers going to lose playing time, or basically have a stern disciplinary action from Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that was beneficial for young guys trying to prove their spot, because when you have young guys who have never seen the field or getting their first time real action that have to make an impact, they're going to have nerves. They're going to make mistakes. There are very few that are going to be like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and things like that.
But let me ask you a quick question on that. I know you have more to say, but let me ask you a quick question. What kind of stern disciplinary action is Aaron Rodgers going to give them?
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
No, I'm seriously serious question.
I wouldn't give a dang what Aaron Rodgers said, to be honest with you. But at the same time, it is a little different being in a locker room or being on an organization that is basically everybody knows he's the man on campus. He's the man in charge, so to speak. He got coaches removed. He's got GMs even removed, so to speak. So I think
get the current coach or GM removed. He tried, but he didn't.
But the thing, I think I'm glad that's happened. But I can understand, like, for example, I'm only bringing this up just for the whole sake of context. I've seen players look good in preseason, like a tight end for the Ravens that everybody was high on, and they were saying he's going to make a huge impact. He's going to do this and this. And I always said he earned his spot on the team, but you haven't earned the playing time until you replicate that in the first game or the playoffs or season. The first game happens, and he drops 3 balls, misses 2 blocks, and causes so many problems that all the people are sitting there looking baffled. I'm like, it's a difference between making the team and now being an impact player on the team, because you got to really come with it, because you're going against the real guys now. And I don't know if those receivers are able to are they going to have the mental prowess to be able to face those guys and not be afraid to make mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes. You don't have that same chemistry that he had with Devontae Adams or Jordy Nelson. So you're going to probably run a wrong route that may give him an interception that shouldn't be his interception, or you're going to make mistakes. But with that attitude that came out about that, everybody's mental prowess is not up top notch. So I can see these dudes making mistakes more and more because they have that in the back of their mind. If that never was in the back of their mind, I don't think. But
he still has Randall Cobb. Ain't that his boy? Don't he got the tight end Tunyon? Ain't that his boy?
Sammy Watkins shouldn't be mentally soft.
Right. And then don't you have,
for a while?
Don't you got AJ Dillon in the backfield and my boy Aaron Jones in the backfield? So I'm saying we got enough weapons where I'm not giving Aaron Rodgers any sort of pass if this team is not good as it's been in the past. If you're supposed to be the bad man, You know what? Make it happen, my friend. Make it happen.
Oh, I agree.
Make it happen.
If you are the two-time reigning defending
two-time
most valuable player, go show your value.
Now, can you dig that? Sucker.
No. Agree. I do think it's on there, but at the end of the day, like I said, run game, number one. Run game is, I actually think if they rely on them more, they can actually help Aaron Rodgers look better and that he would be with these receivers.
Help my fantasy team look better.
Give me my props and everything on underdog or something like that, but AJ Dillon and Andre and Aaron Jones, I think they're a good 1-2 punch, but typically teams are more able to kind of neutralize a running attack than a passing attack in this league. So they may face more challenges where they'll have to kind of rely on those wide receivers.
Minnesota did a good job of neutralizing a pass attack.
They did.
They did. Well, it's just funny because for years, Aaron Rodgers, he's a bad man. He's the best. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever. And I'm not saying he's not. But to see how inept they were, it was fun to see. But we got about 10 minutes left, so we might want to slide into our picks for the week.
Real quick before we do that, I just want to go ahead.
You want to talk about that?
I just want to comment on this real quick. So this past weekend, man, we had some wild games in college football. You had Alabama almost get upset by Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You had Texas A&M lose to Appalachian State.
And
you had Notre Dame lose to Marshall.
Weekend. And they're about to get another L this weekend for Texas A&M.
Notre Dame lost to Marshall. And there was a bunch of other like upsets too, but like those were like, obviously the big ones.
Tennessee got a good win against Pittsburgh too.
Yeah. So when you look at it, man, like I'm gonna go back and say it, and just gonna keep beating this drum. This is why we need to stop having rankings until we get a little further in the season in college football. Because you got these teams that get ranked, and then later on in the year, you're gonna have people talking, they lost to a top 5 team or they beat a top 10 team who never deserved that ranking in the first place.
But the counter argument to that is at the end of the season, a team that they beat wasn't previously ranked at the beginning of the year, or that's how the conundrum with the schedule as it is. Like I could beat, but that's Boston College, Miami, and Virginia, and they were not ranked at the time. But by the time season's over with, they're ranked 20th, 17th, and let's say 10th. And it's like, now that looks like a better win, but the rankings didn't show it at the time.
But the late season ranking is also a reflection of the entire season.
True.
So if you are ranking teams, say like even week 8, right? Even if because that's usually when the BCS polls used to come out, and when the playoff polls come out now, things like week 8, week 9. So if you say week 8 is when we're going to do the first rankings, you're now evaluating everyone based on the first 8 games of the season. You're not evaluating them before that. So you lose all that nonsense because look, we talk about that's why the SEC keeps getting all these teams that lose games. You got Ohio State drops a spot for barely beating a team that was like number 11. Yet, how far did Alabama drop this week for barely beating an unranked Texas team?
Again, we've talked about this on several occasions here on the Play Callers. There is a bias for the SEC.
Yeah. Period. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to beat my we should stop preseason rankings drum one more time.
But I think you lose a lot of the pizzazz and the revenue if you don't have rankings, because people look to those number 1 versus number 5 the first game of the season. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have any rankings for that, it's not going to scream like, oh my God, it's a seriously big game.
It's all about the like they say, the money. Yeah. Or at least that's the perception. At least that's the perception.
I feel you on that, but I am going to tell you this though, JJ. The NFL is the biggest money maker in the world, and they don't do that.
I mean,
you can market without having to do that. That's just college football has lazily given themselves that, and they depend on it. They could market otherwise. They're just too lazy.
But I think the difference too, in defense of the side, is you have like so many teams in college, even Division I, right? That having that core of the big teams gets eyes on there. Like even in college basketball, right? The NBA doesn't do it, but college basketball does it. It works so well because you can market number 7 versus number 12 week 1 of the conference schedule, right? Because let's be honest, if you lose a non-conference game besides like an ACC Big Ten challenge or like the SEC
or
and whoever they play challenge, Big 12, Pac-10 or Pac-12 challenge, which they may not even be able to do after this year because they don't have enough teams, but it's another story for another day. It's
gonna be challenging.
Yeah, it's gonna be challenging for them to find teams to play in a Pac-12. But yeah, so when you look at those, I think that's the point. Like you're able to market those, whereas if you just didn't have them until games were played, then you lose that at the beginning of the season. And I understand your point, but I think that's why they'll never change that. But I know that you're going to beat that drum forever. If they should change it,
and it is what it is. It's oh wow, that's a delay.
That is a delay, sir. So we're going to go ahead, since we have a delay, and move to our picks for the week because we got to get those picks in.
How did we do last week, by the way? Did you look to see how we did last week?
I did not because I didn't.
I'm going to try to get off and.
All right, next week we'll just go. Next week we'll go over the picks from. We'll say how we did the last 2 weeks next week.
Okay.
A little bit of a crazy week, so didn't have a lot of time for things I'd normally be able to do.
Yeah.
But so we'll start here with the first game that we have on the schedule, and that's the New England Patriots versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. This game is in Pittsburgh. Who do you have winning the game, sir?
I'm going to go Pittsburgh, and I don't care if this game was on freaking Pluto.
Uranus, Neptune, Venus, Mars, Mercury, wherever you want to put it. I also am going to pick the Steelers. I just think that the Patriots are in for a rough season. It's well-deserved by this organization. And I think the karma from the past is going to start to catch up with them. And I, for one, think it's must-see TV.
First things first, y'all can see me, right?
Yes.
We can see you.
All right. I am going to go the Patriots. And not because they're a rival, but one thing I didn't like from last week's win is that they didn't utilize Najee Harris the way they should do it.
But one thing he got hurt, right?
I did realize that, but even then he wasn't utilized that much because they had, the pick. They had the pick 6 from Minkah that put them up a little bit big, and then they had a couple other defensive pass plays that kind of changed the momentum for them. But I do know one thing I have to give the Bill Belichick credit for, despite people whether or not, is that he does try his first best initially to take away your best weapon and try to have you win anyone else. And so right now, I do think he's going to do that with them because I still, with a Bill Belichick type defense, Mitch Trubisky, who I don't think as bad, but I can see him having problems against a defense that Bill Belichick has because I've seen Bill Belichick kind of make life hard for these on the cusp guys. So I got to go Patriots. I do think it's going to be a close game. I could see them winning like by a field goal or a game-winning field goal or something like that. But I do think the Patriots are going to win this game.
Yeah,
hey, JJ, these are like 20, 30 seconds tops. For in-depth breakdowns of each game, Tuesday nights, 9 p.m., right here on PlayCallerSportsTalk.com. The NFL Matchup Madness is the place to be for that. So,
and there is an opening for the Ravens as well, sir. But on to the next game. So we'll have the Colts and the Jaguars. I'm going to go Colts. They're embarrassed after the fiasco last week.
It's crazy, but I'm going to go ahead and call this the revenge game because the Jaguars knocked the Colts out of the playoffs last year. So I'm going to go Colts.
2 for 2. I'm going Jaguars for the simple fact of the matter is they have a hard time beating Indianapolis has a hard time beating Jacksonville.
I'll give you credit, man. You do like to be wrong.
Yeah, he does like to be wrong. So one of the other more interesting games of the week, I didn't pick it because I wouldn't have been able to pick both of y'all's games. So I didn't pick either one. I think they're both interesting games. We got the Dolphins and we got the Ravens. So if we see the Ravens team that we saw last week, if we see Lamar Jackson spread the ball around like that and then be able to run the ball and him be able to use his legs when necessary, kind of like a couple of other quarterbacks that had some wins last week, and even some that may have lost but still look pretty good, they should be able to beat this Dolphins team. So I'm going to go Baltimore.
Yeah, I actually I like Baltimore in this one too. I think this might finally be the year where we get to see Lamar kind of break out of what's been holding him back and really start to show what he can do as a quarterback.
He should be pretty pissed off as well.
Yeah, he's got a lot to prove. He wants that contract, so I kind of expect him to go out there and maybe even ignore some of the calls, some of the play calls, and kind of do his own thing. So,
love to see it.
I've seen 3 instances where people said somebody has a blueprint, and that person comes back and beats that very team that they had the blueprint. I got the Ravens at home, and J.K. Dobbins comes back, and that's going to be a big factor.
Also, Joseph picked the Ravens. What a shock.
I know, right?
All right, we got Buccaneers, Saints. You know what, man? I'm going to make this my upset special of the week, and I'm going to pick the Saints. Long as Jameis Winston is healthy, which he's questionable, but as of now, he's going to play. I think if Jameis Winston plays with that dearth of weapons that they now have in the run game and the passing game now, not that B team group they had last year, but you got Juice Landry, you got Michael Thomas, you got 2 really solid running backs. If both of them play, even if one doesn't play, you still got Kamara. So I think that this is upset special early week 2. Saints over the Bucks.
Is Kamara actually playing? I know he was questionable. Okay.
He's playing. No, Ingram was questionable. Kamara wasn't questionable. It was Ingram.
I was thinking of Kamara. Okay.
Yeah, I know because I have Ingram in several fantasy leagues as a backup just in case.
My temptation here is to go with New Orleans because I got some real question marks about that Buccaneers offensive line.
Give into temptation.
But I'm gonna go Tampa. I think they're gonna find a way to get it. So I'm gonna go Tampa on this one.
I'm not going to go buy into the fact that Tom Brady has never beat New Orleans as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I'm going Tampa as well because Dennis Allen's not Sean Payton. So I'm going Tampa.
I love island of relevancy, and I have arrived there. Acknowledge me. And then we have the Commanders and the Lions. I'm going to say that the Commanders are going to win this game by a field goal. I'll even give you a score. Okay. I'm going to go 24-21. The Commanders off of a last second field goal over the Lions.
Oh.
This is a tough one because I could honestly go either way with this. I'm gonna go the Lions on this one. Just a gut feeling.
Those are never a bad thing.
It pains me to say this. Oh God, I hate saying their names. I'm going the Commanders because they typically play Detroit really well. And I think that this will be one of the few games they win.
Okay. So next we have the Seahawks and the 49ers. Seattle had an amazing win last week. Geno Smith played well. The running game did enough. The 49ers lost in the monsoon. People are starting to question Trey Young already, even though he's only in his second game. So I'm just going to simply say that all doesn't matter. San Francisco's pissed. They lost the game. They felt like they should have won. We all felt like they'd win the game. They're going to make up for it against Seattle, who's already had their Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to echo the sentiments that Seattle has played their Super Bowl last week. Not only are the 49ers going to come out focused and maybe a little bit angry, but George Kittle was back at practice today. Still questionable, but pretty good chance he'll actually play. I think that'll be a huge difference maker. So obviously, I'm going to go San Francisco.
I'm going to go San Francisco as well. I think too much. Pretty much what Cool said. They think they knew they had a game that they should have won, didn't win, but they're a team that if you have a strong offensive and defensive line, especially when you're going against a team that also has question marks as well, that's usually something I like to go with that's going to work in your favor.
Yeah.
And I actually have a Seahawks rep on my other show, and he was talking about how if they don't win another game this year, they won their Super Bowl.
They would have when they needed to win, right?
That's what they've said. So you're not that game. So, hey, that's what they said. I'm going to roll with it. All right. So next we have the Falcons and the Rams. I'm not even going to waste everybody's time. The Rams are embarrassed. The Falcons, I'm sorry for you this week. Y'all going to get it.
Falcons, rise up. You sit down because y'all going to lose.
Yeah, I think I had me good. Rise up. As you do, I was like, rise up. And then he said, sit back down. I said, sit down. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a good game because I think LA should do what they need to do, which is come back to week 2 and absolutely destroy this team. Like, LA, no error.
LA about to hit him with that whoop that trick. Get him.
21 in the first quarter type beatdown. Like, there should be no room for error.
Yeah. I think they're gonna. Yeah, I don't think Atlanta's a very good team. If you're an Atlanta person, you're watching this.
I don't either.
You just don't have a good team this year. You shouldn't even been in the game last week, so you just don't have a good team.
Yeah, that was crazy how they came back on that one.
Definitely. And next we have the Cardinals. Yes, it is. Now we have the Cardinals and the Raiders up next. It's still early in the season, but having said that, Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, Devontae Adams, need I go on? Arizona, it's going to be a repeat of last week. I'm going Raiders to get their first of many wins this season.
I told you
Vegas
we did the NFC West preview that the only reason I'm not picking the Cardinals to finish last in the division is because Seattle's in the division.
Yes,
I'm also going with the Raiders.
I think there's too much. Arizona looks like a team that is kind of conflicting with themselves based off of their tumultuous all season. I got Raiders.
And we all know when you pay the young quarterback, you normally don't win. They had to pay the young quarterback, and they're following the right thing. So the next game is what I call a no-nonsense game. You may not agree. You're playing the Texans, and you're expected to be a pretty decent team. You should win. Texans and Broncos, going Broncos.
Yeah, I'm going to go Broncos. I mean, they've been hearing all week about the stupid decision at the end of that game. They're going to want to go out there and, take care of business.
Silence all the critics.
Yep.
I love Russ, but I feel like they're going to go 0-2 because I think there's still a lot going on with that. That showed me right there, coach, like you just said, is not ready to coach the end of a game type situation. And Houston believes in Davis Mills. I got Houston as an upset on the Broncos.
I will tell you real quick. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be this week, but there's going to be a game that Denver's going to lose this year because their coach gets too aggressive going the other way, trying to prove himself.
After making that mistake. Yep. Mm-hmm. They always do it. Especially these young coaches.
It always comes full circle.
Coaches.
Yep.
All right.
You always present. No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you good. Next, we have the next team in the state of Texas, and that's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals and the Arlington football team, who you may know as the Cowboys. What I will say about them is simply this: cluster cluck. You play the Cowboys and you don't win, that is on you. Cincinnati, they're another team that we all feel is good. The team that did not win the Super Bowl last year, but it feels like they have a lot to prove still. And this is one of those games where even though you may be down a receiver due to injury, Cincinnati has more than enough weapons where they should be able to come out here and toast the Cowboys' backup quarterback.
Yeah, do the Bengals have the dreaded Super Bowl hangover? That's the question that everybody's asking. And it doesn't matter this week because the Dallas Cowboys do not have Dak Prescott playing quarterback. And we've seen what this Dallas Cowboys team looks like when anybody besides Dak Prescott's been playing quarterback. It has not been pretty.
It's not often been pretty when he is playing, but worse when he's not.
Yes.
That's another conversation for another day, right?
Another month.
Right, another month. Real quick, I don't think Cincinnati's loss is, I think it's hangover and hang of the fact that now you got the attention of the teams that are particularly better than you, which is Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So I expect them to bring their best, which is what happened last week. But I still think they should beat Dallas because Dallas is down. I mean, Cooper Rush is experienced, but Dallas is down.
All right, next we have the Chicago Bears, and the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football.
Why is that a Sunday night game?
Right, and it's too early to flex, but that's another story for another year. So that's what you're going for a long time. I'm going to go ahead and go Packers. The Bears got them the happy win. They're flying across the ground. In the water, having a party, happy, quarterbacks running around looking like a little kid that just got an extra piece of pizza. And I'm like, bro, this is one game. You have a long season to go. So I'm going to say the Bears don't have a monsoon in their favor this week. And I'm going to go with the Packers, but in a closer game than most people believe.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I'm looking at different for this game, right? The 49ers were starting 3 brand new interior offensive linemen. Trent Williams was playing his first game of the season. Mike McGlinchey's playing his first game back from injury. The Packers offensive line is a little bit more established than what the 49ers had last week. There is no monsoon this week, and you needed 2 blown coverages to actually put points on the board and actually do anything last week. I'm going to go Green Bay.
Aaron owns them. He better beat them. I'm going Green Bay.
Makes sense to me. All right, now next we got the Titans and the Bills as the early Monday game before the main event of the week, the early game. We look at the Bills, a big win. But that status quo for this Bills team, they have one of the most level headed coaches in the NFL. He just plods along. He's not a big talker. I've actually met him, had a chance to talk to him, pick his brain a little bit on how he feels about certain things. And I will say this: I hate that he's in Buffalo and still not in Philly, but we've done well without him. But he's one of those type of guys that if you've ever had a chance to meet him, you've ever had a chance to see him coach your team, you know that he's a quality individual.
Jimmy Johnson prodigy, right?
Yes.
Or Jim Johnson prodigy?
Yep. So I'm going to go Bills. Even though, as everyone knows, for the next 3 years, the Titans are my second favorite team, I'm going to have to go Bills just because I think they're ready and they're going to improve on what they did last week.
Yeah, I think the big question mark for Buffalo this week, we're going to find out how well can they handle that run game, because Tennessee is going to double down on what Mike Vrabel likes to do: run the ball and play good defense. I think that, as JJ pointed out earlier, I think Vrabel is going to get this team really focused. Buffalo's had a good bit of a break having played the opening night game. I'm actually going to go with Tennessee.
Okay.
God dang it. I was looking forward to being the lone wolf. I got to go Tennessee too, because Tennessee has been shown to be able to play against elevated Buffalo teams and beat them. And I think there's going to be more of the same. I don't know if Buffalo is ready for strength against Derrick Henry coming their way.
All right. Back on the island of relevancy again. Love it there. One of my favorite places to be. And lastly, we have the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles. An early season battle of the undefeateds.
You said that so calmly.
Yes, because I already know the outcome. So there's no need for me to overdo it unless I'm going to overdo it for everyone. That shows a bias that we don't do here. So Philadelphia is going to win this game. A.J. Brown is going to be paid a lot of attention to after what he did last week, and rightfully so. That just means Devontae Smith is now going to be the guy that's going to have one-on-one coverages, unless you're going to try to double both of them. If you do that, then Quez Watkins is going to beat you deep. You're going to get three backs out of the backfield that can catch and run the ball. You got a quarterback that's going to be able to throw and run the ball that showed last week he can fit the ball to tight windows, and that he has progressed. He has developed. So the haters that want to see him fail, I am sorry, especially the ones that are Eagles fans. Unfortunately for you, we're going to win games. I'm so very sorry. Eagles in this one.
Bold prediction. Jalen Reagor is going to have 100 yards in a field day against the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, I'm just playing. Philly's.
I was about to say, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something?
Philly's going to win this game.
Oh, that's hilarious. It's hilarious.
I will ride with you, cool. I'll ride with y'all on this one because I think the lights aren't going to be too bright for Jalen. And I think Kirk might go into a Kirk-like situation for primetime games. You are the event. You are the main one.
We are the main event.
I'll be going to sleep before the quarter. I'm just playing.
Oh, I will not be sleeping before that game is over. You can believe that. And then next Sunday, I'm going to be in the D.C. area. I'm there to watch those Commanders get that spanking that's coming to them.
Oh, perfect. I'm off next weekend because it's my birthday, the weekend before my birthday.
Let's go.
All right.
I'm in the area.
I'll be up here.
Appreciate Mr. Jenkins for hopping in and talking sports with us today.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm happy to be back on with y'all. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yes. Oh man. JJ Jenkins on Facebook, Joe Jenkins 07 or 0927 on Instagram and Twitter. One of the two. Just type it in, you find me. And then Saturdays I have the show called The Gauntlet that me and my boys are on. And then be happy to come and make appearances on the Play Callers Sports Talk Show whenever I'm allowed to be on. But you can find me pretty much anywhere on those social media portals.
He said he's allowed to be on. I know my co-host is mainly focused on our show here. So I'll go ahead and give mine. And I'll say you can find me, of course. We'll go from Saturday backwards. That's my new thing. Saturdays, Play Caller Sports Talk, Eagles Elite, BS3 Network, Shady Sports Network, as well as others. The NFC Beast show that will be premiering this week. All things NFC East. So midgets, I'm kidding, Giants, Commanders, Arlington football team, Eagles. That's what we'll be talking. Friday nights, you know where the spot is. Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, NFL Matchup Madness. Every week. You can find that. Oh, I skipped one. That's all right. We'll keep with that one. So Tuesdays, NFL Matchup Madness, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You are correct, sir. Thanks for that assist. We'll hop back to Wednesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Eagles Elite Podcast. All things Eagles, interactive, all year. That's the place to be. It actually worked out.
Yes. And this coming Tuesday, so every other week, at least for the time being, I will be on NFL Matchup Madness covering the 49ers. So make sure y'all tune in and hear my preview for the 49ers and Broncos game for our big week 3 matchup.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that. Thank you. I want to. The Ravens.
We'll talk. You just hang around a minute. We'll talk. But ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna end the show for the night. Appreciate those who will check us out in the replay. I know it's a lot going on in the world of sports right now, but tune in next week. You know where to be. You know the place.
Yes, sir.